I probably had fewer fears when I was younger. They never really go away. There's this lurking specter. And I think that this is something that happens for most creative people. There's this thing that's looking over your shoulder. It's your own self-criticism and self-doubt and comparing yourself to others. And it shuts a lot of people down. You know, some people don't even create because they've got that voice. So I think that it's important to not nurture that thing and being sincere about trying to improve yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, tattoo guardians all across the world, today we bring you legendary pioneer, inventor, creator of a whole movement and style that today we know as biomech, the author of Organica, the author of Reinventing the Tattoo, over 10 years and created the Biomech Encyclopedia, has been a huge early pioneer in the concept of collabing big oversized pieces. This man and Paul Booth, the list just goes on and on. The man who wrote the foreword for Joshua Carlton's book. Ladies and gentlemen, we sit two of the world's best artists down and have a conversation with them today. I'm so excited. Hip and I and Joshua and Mike are so excited to bring to you today legendary Guy Aitchison. Without further ado, we give you another episode of the Tattoo Guardian Show. Thanks for tuning in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Tattoo Guardians podcast. I know I say this every show that I'm super excited, but I am incredibly honored and excited to bring one of my favorite tattoo artists in the world, an absolute pioneer in tattooing, 33 years experience under his belt. Mr. Guy Aitchison is with us.
Yes.
Thank you, Joshua.
What a blessing.
Yeah, what an honor. Total honor.
Goodness.
And Josh, how long have you been at it, just out of curiosity?
30 years. I've been tattooing for 30 years. So you are a massive, I know everybody says this to you, but I can't really describe the impact you've had on my career, my work, my life. We can talk about it later. I was fortunate enough that you wrote the foreword for my book, which changed my life. So thank you so much for that. But yeah, I've been tattooing longer than I haven't been. So I've been around, not quite 33, but I've been around. I plan on tattooing a lot longer.
Yeah,
you know? I got a lot more in me to go. You know,
That's it.
Yeah, I'm looking at least 20 more years.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you find you still love tattooing, right? You still like just in love with it?
Yeah. Definitely one of the best things I could be doing with myself. And it's one of the best ways for me to interact with other people because I'm a weird mix of loner and not, you know. And it's not that I don't enjoy crowds, but I just find the one-on-one aspect of tattooing to be just my pace. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's completely understandable. And we'll get into this later, but you know, one of the things that I really admire that you've done, and I remember you telling me you were going to do it years ago, and I think you've done it for many years, is you've got this beautiful studio now. It's kind of a private studio. You know, it's not your typical tattoo street shop or anything like that, like the old Guilty and Innocent days. Can you tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day tattooing is like? Am I right in saying that? Is it kind of a private outlet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
it's private, and you need to know how to get here.
I love that.
Probably won't find it. It's a stealth building. As you're approaching it, it just looks like a pile of vines, and then you find it has a door, and you open it, and there's 1,600 square feet of open modern space in there. So, yeah, it is entirely about the person getting tattooed. There's no phone ringing and all that hustle and bustle. On rare occasions, Michelle and I will tattoo together, but we haven't done that much since we became parents. We'll get back on it, really.
Yeah, congratulations on that, by the way. That's amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're 10 years into that adventure right now.
Nice.
And so it's really kind of like a getaway, a renewal, a spa sort of experience for people getting tattooed. And almost none of them are local. We do have a couple people from around here we tattoo, but not many. So by and large, people are coming from a distance. They're, taking a break from their lives. It's kind of like for some of them, they call it their tattoo vacation. Yeah. And they'll have for 2 or 3 days, and they'll get the complete treatment and, leave transformed. So it's very different from street shop tattooing.
Yeah. I think you doing this early on definitely segued into a lot of artists having just, private studios. That's what I have, as a private studio. But I think we all kind of dream of having what you and Michelle have built together, this actual, like, really getaway retreat. Like, my shop is hidden away and you'd have to know where it's at. And it kind of looks like you're walking up into a closet and then you walk into this beautiful shop that I built. But I really love how you've got the glass and the nature around everywhere. And, you get these little rumors of like, oh, you have to know where it's at. And you might have to ask a guy where it's at and get on a plane. I love all those little mysteries about it. You know what I mean? I think that's, it just suits you very well for the style of work that you're doing. And like you said, like the whole treatment or tattoo therapy, I think that really goes hand in hand with what you're offering your clientele. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's the future of tattooing. I think you've known that for a long time,
Well, there's one thing that I've always known is, if I have a client that I like, I want them to keep coming back.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to just give them a good tattoo.
Yeah.
Because, I can't tell you the number of times I've had people come through the studio and they might be, collector types, or they like to collect from a few big name artists. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a really awesome piece from so-and-so. And they'll be like,
right.
It was a dick.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll say, oh, okay.
Right.
And I'm really very interested in making sure that, first of all, that doesn't happen. Because I don't want that just, kind of burden on my reputation. But, and I want to know that people walking around with my work are happy, not just with the work, but with the experience. Yeah. But I want them to come back. I want them to come back in 25 years to get that work redone. I want them to bring their adult children to me to get them sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's been happening. So
yeah.
If you give enough, and I don't feel like I have to give too much. Mm-hmm. Every tattoo that I do, when I'm finishing it, I try to imagine that it's on my skin. And I try to ask myself, is this enough? Would I be satisfied right now if I was watching somebody else do this tattoo on me? Would I be like, okay, this is the last highlight it needs? And I'm very happy to be done with the pain after that. Or I'd be watching thinking, I want him to keep going for a while.
Yeah, what a smart way to look at that. That's brilliant. And one of the things that I love, because you're documenting and you've been tattooing for so long, we all get to sit back and see your techniques that we've developed and kind of opted into, and we get to watch your honesty about, hey, I'm going back into this tattoo today, I'm refreshing this. Guy really puts a lot of effort into photographing the experience of the long haul. You know what I mean? So we get to see how some of these techniques play out over time, still being anecdotal, but I think it does paint a broader picture of what we can expect with longevity in today's modern tattooing.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple,
Sure.
Pigments keep changing, and something that was a sure bet
different. Yeah.
25 years ago, and now the same color is made from something completely different, and it's kind of a moving target. So
sure.
I'm finding that reluctantly I'm, sort of coming full circle and back to this place where everything's getting a lot more Black support than I would have given it 15 years ago. And something has got a light source in it. I'm just more likely to try to think of it in terms of making it work as a light source before I've even started putting color in. Okay. There's a happy medium in there somewhere, and
right.
I really want to still be able to pull off these effects that are a little bit more nuanced.
Right.
But finding that happy medium is, I don't know, it'll be my whole career. I'll be still working on that,
Yeah.
But when somebody comes back to me after 25 years and I've got this entire layout that, it looks pretty good design-wise. I don't feel the need to make big changes. They don't want me to make big changes. They just want it woken back up. I'm not going to do exactly what I did the first time. I'm going to look at it. Okay, this time too, I'm going to go a little bit darker with these browns here, and maybe I'll leave this area more open so that, the rhythm of the dark and light shapes is more clear from a distance, where I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that back then.
I just have so much to unpack myself. I know that one of the things, so when I purchased your books, I don't remember the year that you wrote Reinventing the Tattoo, which to me was absolutely life-changing. Do you remember the year that you published that by any chance?
Well, the hardcover one came out in 2009.
In 2009, okay.
The loose leaf variation of that would have been, it could have been predated that by 10 years.
Yeah, I definitely had the loose leaf version, and I remember, and I've told this story on the podcast before. So, I have this thing where when I really want to learn something and I get some information, it's like I need to be in a space that I'm ready to learn it. So when I picked up the book, I actually held it in my hands, and I think the fact that it was loose leaf made it that much more special. You know what I mean? That you would kind of hand bound some of these. I think it was maybe a Kinko's type of thing. I don't remember, but I was at a tattoo convention. I'm thinking it was probably a nationals convention, but it doesn't really matter. But I just remember being so caught up in the convention itself and the excitement of seeing Paul Booth and Bernie Luther and all these guys that I loved, and you, of course. And I remember cracking the book open just to like take a peek at it and seeing it say some monumental thing that was going to be, I knew, career changing for me. And I slammed the book shut really tight because I just wasn't ready to read it yet. You know what I mean? I wanted to get home in my space where I'm comfortable with my, sandwich or whatever, and my family, and just sit down and really digest the book. That's how important it was to me. So I'm just kind of reminiscing about how special that was, because I know the guys have heard me tell stories like this before.
Yes.
That is the book that, to me, I don't think anybody had done anything like that. I mean, there was like the tattooing ADC from Huck Spalding, and I don't know, there might have been some machine stuff, but Guy really took a pretty big step and a risk, really, I think, to put this out there,
Well, okay, so the risk part, this is a fine line to walk, especially back then, of you don't give away industry secrets. And everyone that went through a traditional apprenticeship, which I did, really got a sense of that. And, I really wanted the respect of the industry leaders, the people that had gotten there before me, people like Jack Rudy, Ed Hardy, Kerry Barba, Suzanne Fauser, these were some, and Leo Zaletta. These are people I talked to very early on about what it would mean to be involved in education, and what do you publish and what do you not publish. And Gil Monte, a famously cranky person, I talked to him too. I definitely wanted the cranky version of that opinion too.
Right.
And we didn't have YouTube back then. And now that we have YouTube, and now that we have a lot of pretty competent tattooers just putting free videos up on YouTube, how to tattoo, they're just trying to get the views. They're trying to get the subscribers. At this point, that's currency to them. And there's not this sense of I need to be on good terms with Jack Rudy and these other people that was such a motivator for me. I did not want, I felt so blessed that in the first convention I ever went to, my boss introduced me to a lot of these people. Like Ed Hardy, I got to meet when I was less than a year into tattooing,
Wow.
And I got tattooed by Kerry Barba that first convention, and they all looked at my portfolio. They were willing to give me the time of day. And I was not going to take that for granted. I wanted to be able to keep showing up at conventions and feeling like these folks still thought I was okay at bare minimum. And so I did consult. And so one of the big changes happened when Dennis Dwyer, who used to do the tattoo tour conventions, asked me to teach seminars. It's like, seminar? You mean like where you stand up there and talk and they pay? And like, yeah, exactly. Like, okay. Right. At that point, I think I was young and brash enough that I didn't see any real risk at first. Right. But then, I kind of went home and I'm like, okay, I got a couple months to get my act together for this. What am I going to use? Now that we didn't have digital projectors back then, or you could project video, anything like that. So the first one I gave, I just had some photo prints that I could stick in this overhead projector that would promptly melt them and cause them to curl. So then you had to hold them down with something. But prior to giving this seminar, I felt like, man, I feel a little weird charging people $150 to watch me talk. I just feel weird. And I felt like I needed to do something to boost my confidence. And so I made these little booklets. cover up for tattooists, and it was like
Right.
12 black and white pages and maybe 4 or 5 color pages, something like that. And I handed those out for free, with the seminar. And I figure, you know what, at this point, they're going home with something that they can't get anywhere else. And I could completely fall flat on my face while giving the seminar, and they're still going to feel like they got their money's worth.
Right.
And so it's a really big confidence booster. And it also kind of set the precedent for me, where for a lot of my seminars in the beginning there, I made books, the graphic language, it was a color booklet. So I had these 3 booklets that I did before finally deciding to consolidate everything, all the ideas into one big loose leaf thing. And that's when Reinventing came together.
Wow.
It's awesome.
So,
And
yeah,
what's the timeline here in your career when you decided and stepped out and applied the courage, even gave yourself the confidence with those books, knowing you're going to leave them something tangible? How many years do you feel like, where were you at in your career? Were you 4 years in, 1 year, 8 years?
Okay, so let's just say that Dennis Dwyer invitation was maybe about four-ish years into it,
Cool.
4 or 5 years into my career. So that would have been 93 maybe.
Yeah.
And that and I could have these numbers completely wrong, but by the end of that decade, I had, done the various smaller booklets and possibly the loose leaf Reinventing. It might be, there's a copyright in there. It might say 1999. I don't have handy in this room, but yeah, as far as, having the confidence to feel like I could give a seminar without handing out a book, I still feel like I have to offer something besides me talking.
Sure.
And so it's not a book, it'll be a hands-on exercise. That's the other thing that I do. And I do those every week now online. I love the hands-on exercises, having a group of people who are interested in pushing themselves. They show up every week. Some of them are in their first or second year of tattooing. Some of them are my age.
Yeah.
And just wanting to, not fall into a middle-aged rut, because we see that happen. We even see that happen with artists that used to be badass. They're like still good, but they haven't done anything new in a long time. And
absolutely. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
very easy for that to happen.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure you keep pleasing your clients. You want to give them the thing that they expect from you, and before you know it, your envelope starts to shrink, and you haven't even noticed that.
Right. So, am I understanding correctly? And I think Hip, if I'm right, you've joined up for this. So, Reinventing the Tattoo, everything has been moved digitally, basically, right? And you're offering some sort of a hands-on kind of. Is there a forum involved? Is it different exercises? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So the whole course is kind of laid out like a book, chapter by chapter, and you got a bunch of embedded videos in there. And links to exercises and things like that. And then every Monday night, if you're a subscriber, you can join the exercises that I lead, which is done via Zoom. We also have a couple of our other team members, Ricardo, Kier, and Jason, and sometimes Bruno, who are leading drawing groups throughout the week. And that's not just for paid subscribers either. That's for anybody who it was originally kind of conceived as a lockdown thing, because a lot of people were just crawling out of their skin wanting any social contact with other tattoo artists, right? And so the idea of I can just sit in my couch with my phone pointed at my iPad and chit chat with a half dozen other artists that are doing the same. We're working on our homework for the day or whatever. It's not like a specific project or a structured activity. It's just a chance to get together and draw and maybe give each other a little feedback, advice. Maybe somebody there has Procreate tricks that nobody's heard of before. And so we've got those going on 4 or 5 times a week, including the one that I lead on Monday nights. So we've got a lot of interactive stuff right now. And I mean, the whole Zoom phenomenon has made this possible.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like with COVID, like one of the good things that did come out, is stuff like this. It got people kind of figuring out different ways to interact with each other. Would you be okay if we put some links below for the people, our listeners, to possibly be able to check out the the forum, I guess?
Yeah, please do. So there's a whole lot of stuff under the Reinventing name right now. So there's the educational program. That's something that you pay for. It's a yearly subscription now. And that gets you the book content. It's the original book content, which I've been rewriting periodically to keep up with changes in technology. The last rewrite happened earlier this year. And then there's a bunch of new video in there. The original book had a bunch of short video clips in it. The new one has those, plus quite a few like full-length seminars in them.
Wow. Okay.
And a couple on cover up, a number of technical videos of just there's a whole suite of them that I refer to as technique, which used to be on 5 different DVDs. And a number of different design ones, contrast, flow. Full-length seminars in addition to the material we had already. I've got some guest chapters written by people like Don McDonald, Megan Jean Morris, Phil Garcia, Steve Butcher. So it's a nice expandable format now that it is digital, right? Drop a new chapter in there. So that's the paid thing. Then we also have the app, the community, which, if you've got the app installed on your phone, that just gives you easy access to all of our content, both the paid educational content and the free stuff, which is, at this point, there's an enormous library. There's also a bunch of weekly programming going on in addition to the drawing groups that I was mentioning.
So it sounds to me like it's pretty fruitful. And HIP, is this something that you've actually signed up for already, or are you looking into it now, or?
Yeah, so I got into it, I'd say around 6 months ago in the wintertime. And I just paid for like the full year subscription, and I didn't really understand like the vast amount of things that were going on it. Like I'm still trying to learn to utilize the app to its full potential, but it's very overwhelming for me personally.
We are working on trying to simplify. This is something that, we have our Tuesday staff meetings where we're always asking ourselves, how could we improve the experience? And so I think we're going to be doing some pretty dramatic simplifying over coming weeks, which everything's still going to be there, but I think the route to finding it all should be a lot simpler. I'm also hoping that everyone that subscribes watches the introduction videos, which includes instructions on how to join the drawing groups, because those drawing groups are, I think out of all the things that I'm offering, the curriculum that you're getting, obviously, I spent my entire career developing that curriculum, but I'm also teaching a class every Monday night, a live class where I look at your drawing and give you direct feedback and suggestions, and you can stay on the Zoom call for the entire 90 minutes, 2 hours, and ask questions. And that's every Monday night. So if you want to get your money's worth, that's the way to do that. Is to make sure that you are there at the Monday night drawing group.
Very cool. So yeah, you listeners down there, definitely take advantage of this. Make sure you click on that link below and see what this is all about. I guarantee you it's amazing. I really appreciate you doing that for everybody. That's such a, it's such opening thing. Like, I wrote a book about tattooing years ago. And like I said, I was honored that you did the forward for me. And I caught a bit of flack, why are you giving your secrets away and all this stuff. So I know a little bit about that territory, some of the people that, I wouldn't say anybody hated on me, but the people that questioned it ended up purchasing the book and getting tattooed by me inevitably, eventually. And this openness to share to the right people. I guess I very much believe in education done the right way. And I've always felt like Guy really had a good handle on how to do this, you know what I mean? So he's really given us a lot here, guys.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the big challenges, and that was actually how I got past those objections in the beginning was, okay, what is the right way to do this? Now, starting out teaching a seminar at a convention, that's easy. All of the people who are allowed to purchase seminar tickets are convention attendees who have artist passes. No one gets an artist pass from Tattoo Tour if they're not a vetted professional artist, right? So conventions are already doing, in the old days, they don't do it anymore. It was like, I want 1,200 booths,
Evergreen does.
Back in the old days, people were strongly vetted, and everyone had to have their bloodborne pathogens, everything else, right? And so by the time someone actually was in an opportunity to buy a seminar ticket, it's pretty clear that they are either a professional tattooist or an apprentice in a shop owned by professionals, or they just simply wouldn't be there,
Right.
And so with that being kind of the environment, it made it a lot easier to offer education. So then outside of that, Gabe and I ended up, across the years, experimenting with a lot of different ways of trying to vet artists and just make sure that someone is actually a professional before they can, just watch any seminar they want. And this is a tricky thing too. It's manpower, and especially I had to let my staff go because of COVID. I used to have somebody that could make the phone calls and that kind of thing. And so, we still look over names, and often it's a real easy thing. You just look at their Instagram profile. It's like, oh yeah, there's the shop they work at. There's their work. This is a tattoo artist, right? 9 times out of 10, they're very easy to confirm that way. So, it's obviously the bar is different than it used to be. Everything had to be much, much tighter back then. But back then we didn't have YouTube. Right now, anything that I don't teach you can go learn from YouTube, and maybe not as well. So it really would be better. I think that it's kind of an accepted thing these days that by the time someone is actively paying their money for education, when you could get this stuff for free on YouTube, is serious and probably is not going to misuse that information.
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
So good. Well, first of all, Guy, I just love your heart. The responsibility that you chose to take on so early on in your career and have kept integrity to that all along. And, I don't know if you ever hear the term, especially in business, where they say, hey, under promise and over deliver, right? But something we operate by, and what I'm hearing in your language, is to not under promise and over deliver, but you actually are you over promise and then over deliver on top of that. I can only imagine anyone that's bought a ticket to come to your seminars already stoked that they got a ticket to your show, but your heart to not only serve them from your table at the highest level and potential that you can, but that you've thought of what else can I give them? How else can I bless them? What can I leave them with above and beyond, on top of how you're serving them with all of your blood, sweat, and tears, and what it even took you to even obtain that knowledge to now pour it into someone else. So I just want to acknowledge you for that and thank you for your heart in that area.
Right on. I appreciate that. Okay, so why give it away? I mean, obviously, you can get paid for teaching seminars a certain amount, but trust me, it's not like the way you get paid for doing tattoos, right?
Right.
It's something you only do if you really want the experience. And I learned very quickly from my first few seminars, and the first bunch of them were all through Dennis Dwyer's conventions, because it was an environment where I felt like I could stumble a little bit if I needed to. But I immediately discovered what a steep learning experience it was to teach, because you're trying to speak in concrete terms about your subject. You need to be able to narrow it down to very black and white terms. And a lot of the time, you don't really know your subject in those terms. You just get by, and you find yourself talking about it, and you're like, and the truth of the matter is, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
I found myself in that situation in the middle of seminars.
Yeah.
multiple times. And I would chuckle and I'd say, well, let's hear some opinions on this, and then we'll go around the room with it. And you know, it doesn't help anybody to put on this mantle of all-knowingness.
Thank you.
And honestly, most people aren't fooled anyway.
That's
so,
right.
you know, better just admit when you don't know. And that's very empowering for others who are like, man, I've always struggled with that one too. And then you can get the conversation going, well, why have you struggled with it? And before you know it, even if there's not a concrete answer, people are feeling better about it. And they're feeling more empowered to address those things.
Yes.
Humility is the ideal state.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And like you said, it empowered everyone in the room.
Totally. And, you know, like, I'm giddy right now. I could be a fly on a wall all night and just like listen to you guys cut it up. And just speaking from experience, and, you know, I've shared this a lot, but I like to see people I admire and look up to, that I put on the pedestal, show their cards and be transparent, not know everything. You know, you've done tattoos, I imagine, that haven't healed the greatest from time to time. Just things like that give me hope for myself, because I'm my worst critic, and it just seems like you and Josh and everybody I look up to in the industry just shits like fucking rainbows and does badass shit all the time. So to experience either, you know, going to I just paid money for a Guy Aitchison seminar, and then I can appreciate your transparency and honesty and humility and being like, hey, let's bring you guys in on this and take some opinions. That is like way more authentic than the persona you were talking about, trying to pretend like you got it together. Because, you know, the real recognize real, and I can tell if somebody's bullshitting, and ultimately that's not going to serve me at the end of the day, because now a rumor started, so I'm going to go back with some bullshit knowledge, and, you know, whoever I'm going to tell that to and let that roll into a big pile of poop that it's supposed to roll into, versus like just being like, hey man, I don't know.
Which is why I appreciate early on he said, I don't need to be burdened by that, or my reputation to be burdened,
right?
You know, which is just beautiful. And when you keep it 100, you don't have to worry about what you said or did.
Man,
you know,
the truth needs no defense.
Yeah. The less you have to backtrack and ask yourself, okay, who did I bullshit? Who do I have a problem with? Let me figure this out before I speak.
Man.
What is your schedule like nowadays, Guy? Are you tattooing in the studio mostly? Are you traveling much? Well, obviously with COVID, you're not traveling much. But.
Yeah. Even before that, I was traveling less and less. And when I did attend conventions, I tended to not tattoo. Hang out with my friends and maybe teach something. Typically, I will tattoo 3 days a week. And pre-COVID, a larger and larger proportion of that was collaborations. I had 1 or 2 bare minimum large collaborative projects every month, with artists coming from other states or countries in some cases. And so that became a very high energy thing for me. I really fed off of that. It was a beautiful thing. And like the spring of 2020, when all of a sudden everything came crashing down, I had to cancel like 5 different artists that were coming through over the next 2 months alone. Oh man, it was going to be such great projects, back pieces and sleeves and that kind of thing. So starting to get back into that a little bit, but it's been a slow recovery in terms of just logistics are still funny for people.
Right.
When you're doing a piece like that, there's just more moving parts. So it's like most tattooers, I've had no problem keeping busy. Right, there certainly has been no shortage of demand for tattoo work.
Definitely,
but I've been trying to keep it simpler, and I'm finding that I'm booking fewer overseas clients right now, and I just think that for the time being, that's the way.
Right. do you find yourself still drawn to, I've always known you for a very specific style that you pretty much invented. Are you still really drawn to the kind of biomechanical type of stuff? I remember you used to get to build structures and light them up and just really put this massive amount of work even before the sketches started. Are you still working on the same sort of projects?
Yes, I am. For me, a lot of my goals are very long term. I'm trying to accumulate very specific skill sets, right? And so there's the light form series, and I did 10 of those, and I've got another 10 in the queue for the next decade or so, right? Provided the universe allows it. And one of them I've already built the model for. I've photographed it. I've been getting together with the inglorious Hoko online, and he's been teaching me about ZBrush. So I'm trying to learn some new digital skills, because the old tools that I used to use are all obsolete. And
sure.
I've still not really plumbed the depths of the newer tools yet. So, this winter I hope to be able to start the next one in the light form series. So I've been doing a lot of little paintings this last couple of years, and this month I've been painting every day from life. I'm painting, still lifes, and like this morning I painted a tree stump, right? And I'm just trying to get the light. I'm trying to get the lighting. And I'm trying to capture a certain feeling very hard, more else. I'm trying to do that alchemical thing of taking these colored minerals and mashing them around on a panel and holding it up, and somebody can get a feeling from it. You know what I mean? Right. That's just an amazing thing. And the painters I admire the most are able to do that very successfully. So I'm hoping to be able to learn some of that magic and apply this to light form number 11, which I'm going to be painting over January, February. And that's a combination of working from a model, a clay model, and a digital component. And this time, although I've photographed the thing, since I've been spending this whole month painting objects from life, I think I'm going to keep the model right there next to me while I'm.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I've got it traced out,
right.
I'll be able to do the rendering looking at the actual model, and because I'm really gaining a lot from painting from life. And I'm also trying to stay away from the little brushes and stick with, half inch, 3/4 inch kind of brushes, and lay that paint on thick, let the paint speak without losing all the realism. So it's a razor's edge that I'm walking here, and I can see it in my mind's eye. And if I work really, really, really hard for the rest of my life, I might get partway there before I die.
Right. That's exciting. I'm excited to see what you do, though, because, I consider myself a somewhat of a painter, and that was a struggle for me as well. As I learned to tattoo first, so I always wanted to go in with all these details and these little brushes. And even during the collaboration days with Paul Booth and stuff, I'd start out way too detailed, and Paul was always like, get these general forms down. And it's neat to talk to somebody else that comes from the tattoo industry to know about, let's get these bigger brushes, let's concentrate on paint quality. And it's exciting to hear these words,
Yeah, let the paint speak.
Yeah.
And so I really recommend that people follow a wide variety of artists. And it doesn't all have to be the kind of art that you would personally do, or even that you would personally get.
Yeah.
It just has to be good.
Yeah.
It has to inspire you, right? And so right now I'm following, a bunch of tattooers, but this includes some really good traditional tattooers, and some realist tattooers, and a few black and gray tattooers, in addition to the ones you would expect me to be following, right? I'm following a bunch of painters, and of course there's some great sci-fi and fantasy illustration, stuff like that you would expect me to maybe be seeing. But I also follow a lot of landscape painters. I'm really interested in the landscape, and of course I live this every day. I spend a lot of time outdoors. We're immersed. Got a bunch of acreage here, and I'm out there trying to experience and live it as much as I can, and the kind of feelings that you can get from the landscape. It's the closest thing that I personally get to a spiritual experience. And to be able to capture just an iota of that. Like yesterday I was at a state park with my daughter and her bearded dragon, and we're walking down the trail, and I just saw the light playing off this cliff, and it was a very late afternoon light, and it probably only hits that cliff from that angle once a year. But it had this vibe to it, okay? And you know, I can imagine like sitting there for a full day just trying to map that out so that I could be ready for when the lighting was just there. And I had 20 minutes to get that nailed in. But I don't know, I'm starting to have less and less desire to paint from photos as a result of painting from life for a while now, because the photo has a lot more information, but none of it goes as deep. The lights aren't bright, the shadows aren't as intense, the amount of value range isn't there. Your eye can't like meter wherever it looks as it does in real,
exactly, because
the camera has already limited the gamut when it captured the image, and that's as far as you're ever going to go. Is that image. And so I'm really feeling like this month of painting every day has taught me more about seeing and observing and taking in the nuance and the depth of what the environment that I'm in.
That's amazing. And that's a good example, Hip, of why I've talked to you in the past about, you know, when tattooers come to me, you know, what can I do to make my work better? One of my number one things is do you paint? If you don't paint, like start painting, start studying. Actual painters, you know, take painting classes actual from ateliers, like not just from tattooers, you know what I mean? Like learning to paint correctly, it just adds so much, you know what I mean? I do the same. I learned to write music, you know, I learned to play piano. Those things actually help me in my day-to-day tattooing, believe it or not. You know, just the dynamics of everything, you know?
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, Josh, because what was it, 90? I read up some, and so like Guilty and Innocent, like you shut that down in 98 to go and paint more, or to focus more on painting. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. Partly, I just really was running away from the shop drama. And I was at a point in my life where I was painting a lot more, and I was still very serious about the tattooing, but I would end up in this tiny little space, this tiny little overpriced space with, you know, music that was always a compromise, and you know what I mean? The environment was full of compromises, and the piercer and the other tattooer were, you know, fighting over a girl, and the manager was having a problem with somebody else, and one of the front guys is late, and then the
tattoo
other guy
drama.
To be able, every day, and I was having to fire people, and you know, I cannot even begin to tell you how much I don't like doing that.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
And I was reading this book at the time by this guy, John Lilly. He was the one that that movie Altered States was based on, The Center of the Cyclone. And he had this big thing going on. He was a dolphin researcher. And while he was doing all this dolphin research, he was also doing some psychedelic research in his own spare time. And he realized that really that's where he wanted to go. And he didn't even really care about this other line of research he was doing, but he had all these people, this entire big thing going on. And he realized, you know what, that doesn't matter. I'm not interested in it. I've only got this one life. And so sure enough, he disassembled the whole dolphin research thing and went down that other rabbit hole. But it was right at that time I was reading that book, and I was thinking about all the frickin' drama that I was having to deal with every day, and wondering why was I doing that? Why was I even wasting my time with it? So that was a big turning point for me.
Right.
Now, as far as like wanting to be in a private studio, you know, that ended up being just sort of a side effect of it, because honestly, working by yourself, it's got its pros and cons, you know?
Sure.
And I really enjoy my clients, every single one of them. I don't have anybody that I dread. And by and large, I'm very content. But I think part of that is because I have enough collaborations and things like that coming through. And I get together every Monday night and hang out with other tattooers and draw. And so I'm not totally in a vacuum, you know? of course, up until parenthood, my wife and I always booked on the same days. We could have the same days off. So, being by yourself, in a completely private studio, I think that, be careful what you ask for. Right? I love it, but only because I have these other things in balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Man,
that makes sense. Yeah. And I know the same way. Like, I'll find myself in my studio and I'm like, I'll look around and I'm like, I just love my studio. I love my partner that I work with. But sometimes the little dramas, I don't want a lot of them, but sometimes I miss just some of the chatter of the tattoo shop. You know what I mean? Just like whatever's going on. So it is nice to kind of get out of that bubble sometimes. Do you find yourself, you've always been such a collaborator. I think you really helped pioneer a lot of the early collaboration movements. I know when Paul Booth was really big on that. If I'm right, I think you were really an integral part of that. Do you enjoy collaborating nowadays? You said you're booked up with quite a bit of it. Is that something like if somebody, if somebody were to reach out to you that you admired, a tattooer like, let's say, Grime or something, and you wanted to collaborate with you, was that something you'd be into doing nowadays?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Obviously the logistics have to work, and by and large, coming here because I can't get away very easily.
Right.
And so, yeah, as long as both the other artist and the client are down with it, and as long as it makes sense, the collaboration makes sense, and there's very few that don't.
Sure.
You need two artists that have mutual respect, and from that you should be able to find a common vision. I think that there's not much else that's really required. That mutual respect will allow you to find those compromises, will allow that communication to happen. You'll be excited about the curveballs that the other person throws you. You'll be excited to give up half of the agency in that piece because you want to see what these unexpected things are going to be. That's the whole reason why you're doing it, I think that, for me, that's been, I think, part of also how I've stayed out of ruts is if I see another artist who I'm amazed by what they're doing, rather than getting that feeling of, oh man, I'm feeling like I'm kind of feeling left behind here, people are racing ahead of me, I'll just reach out and say, hey, let's do a sleeve.
Nice. Have you found over the years, do you have any memories of, like, let's say you were collaborating with somebody and maybe this was the first time really working with them, maybe at first you questioned their technique or their idea only to find out like, hey, I really understand. And like, I'm assuming you've learned some things along the way yourself. You know what I mean? Like, are there some memories of,
I try to go into every one of them first asking like, how would you like to start this? What needle groups would you use for something like this? Right. And then I'll tell them what needle groups I would use for something like that. And then we might both set up all of the above, right?
Right.
And try out each other's methods a little bit. And we'll usually pour identical palettes. So that's going to be palettes that we both are going to contribute ideas to,
Right.
We will always talk about where are we putting the strong blacks and where are we not putting the strong blacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beyond that, you almost can't go wrong. If you've got that talked about, you're not going to lose your clarity and your distinction and your contrast,
Right.
And I think as long as that is has been discussed, I've seen the collaborations that I've seen, not any of mine, thankfully, but the ones I've seen that have gone the most wrong. It feels like that didn't get talked about, and
Sure.
everything ends up getting equal treatment, and you don't want that. You want contrast, which means you can get very different treatment on different elements.
Yeah,
so
we've talked about that in the
having
past.
enough, conversation about that.
Right.
That's about really the only thing that I found that needs talking about. And then just asking. I like to ask, what do you like to use for this? What colors would you use for this effect here? We might have a color drawing in some cases. Often we'll have just black and gray drawing and kind of do it all verbally, when it comes down to coming up with the color scheme. And that's fun. It's like,
I bet.
Get a little fleshy here. Ooh, yeah. Should we go a little more green or a little more brown with how it connects?
Yeah.
Work. Yeah. This should be a really warm brown because it's coming into this. And so we'll have this conversation that'll lead us into unexpected places. and pour the pellet as we're going. So
Wow.
yeah, it's all about finding that alchemy. You know, I mean, you want it to be open to things just happening. You know, and those things happen should be well within, you know, things that both parties know are going to work. There's no reason why risks have to happen.
Yeah.
It's all being done by a pair of artists who know what they're doing, right? So there's no reason for it to fall flat unless there's either a problem with communication, or just I don't know, if somebody comes in with a little too much ego. You know, I've seen it go wrong too.
Yeah. So how do you find yourself, I'm sorry to interrupt you, just real quick here. How do you find yourself working nowadays? Like, do you, especially when you're doing these big collaborations and maybe, you know, the other artist is traveling, you've got all this travel and these plans. Are you tattooing like long days? Are you tattooing as long days as maybe you would have 20 years ago?
I put in 6 hours of needle time on an average day. That's my goal. I might go a little bit over that. Sometimes I'll have a client saying, "Hey, I'm ready for an 8-hour day." Right?
Yeah.
But by and large, I find that 6 pretty much will do me. And this might be 6 plus 2 hours of freehand drawing.
Right.
You know, and then on top of that, there's going to be I take decent breaks, and I don't have any problems with my hands.
Good.
You know, but I take decent breaks, and I'll have dinner with my family, and you know. So I'm not rushing through the session, but we'll sit down, we'll work for 3 hours without really stopping unless somebody has to take a leave. And then I'll take an hour break, and then we'll work for, you know, another 2 to 3 hours, take a short break, and then kind of finish the session out. That's typically how it goes.
Okay.
If there's a collaboration going on with 2 artists working, typically we'll have 2 of us working at the same time, and for a total of 12 hours of needle time. That will be the kind of day I'm often happy.
And I like that how you talk about needle time, like, because, you know, like you said, you might spend a couple of hours prepping. I like it. You know, I love the idea of somebody coming to my studio and being aware that we're going to spend a day together, but not necessarily all tattoo time. You know what I mean? There's all the prep time and communication and all that. So I really do like kind of having set those boundaries ahead of time. I think that's a really smart way to work, for sure. Because I've kind of jumped around. You know, I used to do 8-hour days, and I'm only tattooing 4 hours at a time now. But I like that that needle time. I'm going to start kind of using that in my vocabulary daily, for sure.
Well, it's kind of funny because now I'm using this cordless machine that pretty much gives me a 6-hour battery before it has to be
there you
swapped.
go. So yeah. So you're using rotaries nowadays, mostly?
Yeah.
The
reason I'm able to do the 6-hour days is because every time there's an ergonomic advance, I keep up with it.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, because when I had the original book, there was zero talk. I don't know if the rotaries weren't even taboo. They just weren't unless you're in prison. Do you mind talking about a machine you like? I mean, is there a favorite you're using or a daily driver?
Oh man, the one I'm using the most right now is the Cheyenne Unlimited.
Okay.
And it's the same motor as the Sol Nova, which I used for 3 years prior to that.
Okay.
No cord. And one of the things I like about it is it's a wider diameter machine, which means, you know, the longer handle on the wrench. That motor is getting more leverage.
Sure, yeah, a little more torque. Okay.
And it's just been so smooth and consistent for such a long time. Another machine that has really impressed me recently is the Numa. It's I just spoke to Carson on the phone the other day, and man, that machine seems amazing. I hear nothing but great stuff about it. You know, he's always been forward thinking. He's always been innovative. I think he really knocked this one out of the park. Yeah. No, he's not got a cordless edition, although he recommends that people get the cam. I think it's the cam. No, it's the critical battery pack. Okay. And then what else? The other thing is he doesn't have disposable grips yet, and that's one of the reasons I ended up running with Cheyenne in the first place. Is they were the first that had a disposable grip, and that just seems a dodgy thing. People working conventions.
Right. I remember when I first heard that, I was like, we would never do this, you know. But now everybody does it, you know. So.
Yeah, and so the way that the Cheyenne pen is that's so nice is you've got a bag over the machine, and then you've got the twist on grip, and when you're done, the grip gets tossed, the bag comes off, nothing has been in contact with that machine. You still give it a metaside swipe, but there's nothing been in contact with it. So that was a real selling point for me. And so Carson is working hard on some grip alternatives that are, he's got a couple different ideas that sound exciting. So
nice.
Yeah, I just like the idea that he's an actual working tattooer. And I definitely don't mean to rip on Cheyenne, because I've worked with them for many years. And even though it's not run by working tattooers, they've got a rep that goes from shop to shop, and he lets them tattoo him with their experimental needle groups, and really is, very interested in being as immersed as possible in the shop culture and hearing what artists want and what their feedback is.
That's awesome. I know Hip has been using the Numa for probably the last couple of months now. Am I right, Hip?
Yeah,
you bought a couple of them, right?
Yeah, I did. I actually was just driving to work one day and threw on Fireside, and Jake was interviewing Carson, and I just I'm a tinkerer. Like I like to Frankenstein and know like how machines work and like why does it do this. And he kind of went into depth on the logistics of it, and it just seemed like tat wizardry. And I was like,
the waveform and all that.
Right. And
well, yeah, it's,
go ahead.
That's something that, Carson and I kind of came upon that together. We had this idea, and I don't remember who proposed it first, but we ended up turning his garage into a lab. Not that kind of lab, but we rented a high-speed camera, and we got a bunch of other stuff together. And we tested about 40 machines. We had a bunch of area tattooers come by, and these are all really good tattooers in Southern California. And we asked them to bring their favorite 2 or 3 machines, and ideally a liner, a shader, and if they had some kind of shading liner kind of combo machine that they liked. And so we tested all these machines, and not only did we, film them up close with the high-speed camera, and the purpose of that was so that we could graph their stroke cycles. But we also did ink flow tests where, the ink cap would get filled back to the top. You'd put the machine in there and run the pedals for 5 seconds, like try to eliminate every variable, and then take it to the rubber skin and see how long, well, there's a second person with a stopwatch, like 32 seconds, for how long it's. We had all this information. It was crazy.
Wow.
And then there just wasn't really the technology at the time for us to do anything with it. And what we were left with was the idea of, let's just say that we were able to, through graphing all these really good machines, come up with an idealized graph for a liner, for a shader, for a shading liner, what a perfect stroke cycle would be for the best performing machines in each of those classes. How would you then reproduce that stroke cycle?
Right.
And so that's what Carson is doing with the cam plates that he's got. And he's not able to get as high resolution and contain as much of the information in those stroke cycles, but it's a pretty good representation of the rise and fall of the needle, graphed across time. It's closer than any other machine out there in the rotary field. I don't think anybody else has tried anything like this.
Yeah, it seems like it kind of answered the question of lining too. Forever, we always heard, these rotaries are just not going to line like a coil. But I think Carson's getting really close, because I'm just hearing people that are just so happy with that single pass, even like 14 liners, no problem. So I'm excited to try it. I was excited to talk to him on the phone the other day, and one of these days when I get to my health is a little better, I'm looking forward to using it for sure. It's just exciting times,
What are you using right now?
So right now, I mainly use the Flight Nano, or they've got a wireless one as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I use
anything from Inkject. I'm loving.
I used Inkjectors for a long time, and I asked him at one point, because I really wanted to move to a pen machine, if they were ever thinking about going in that direction. He said, "No, I think I might be going more in a traditional direction." And so, that was the end of that. It's not that I don't like, because the Inkject is not nearly as the weight is not offset the way one of these guys is, right?
Right. But it's still, the pen style is so nice. I remember when Bob Terrell was so sold on his coils for so long, and when he got that Cheyenne, and he was like, "Holy shit, this is everything," So it'll change it for sure. I talked crap about when I remember when Cheyenne was just giving them out to everybody. I was like, I'm not even interested. And then when I finally got my hands on one, I was like, oh shit, I was wrong. These are so nice. You know, my work was healing so solid and just faster, and it just everything was just better. You know.
I love it when I'm wrong. You like
Do
that?
what?
Yeah. I love it when I'm wrong. Like that.
I liked it. You know, like we used to, you know, people would be like, "Oh, you got to make sure your machines are facing north every night before you close the shop up." And, it'd work perfect one day, and the next day you couldn't tattoo tribal to save your life. It's so much easier. Everybody's got it so much easier now. So,
So good.
You know, I went through a long process of trying to accept rotaries. It didn't happen overnight. It was probably a 3-year process. Michelle was trying out a lot of rotaries, and she was just fed up with the unpredictable,
exactly.
oil machines. And, you know, I was too, but still trying to hang in there. And I'm like, man, these are like the best machines. I'm using like an main machine, and I'm making sharps, and, you know, and when they were all working perfectly, it would be the greatest experience. But, you know, you'd have those days where all 3 of them weren't, and, you know. Yeah. And so she tried out, you know, Neotats, and let's see, what was this? The Hyperstigma, that company had the swash plate machines.
Yeah, it seems like they came out with, like, the Stigma came out with a bunch of rotaries at once, and kind of like changed the game a little bit, but then kind of backed away before Cheyenne was kind of, I think once the cartridges came out, they just changed everything.
Well, you know, the problem that I had with all those machines is I would look at the work after it was healed, and it just didn't look saturated. It was more sheer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just felt like it would, you know, it didn't have the power. And so now we have drones, and because of drones, not that we're using drone motors per se in tattoo machines, but it created an arms race where billions of dollars got spent on trying to make electric motors smaller, faster, higher performance, more reliable, run longer, lighter weight, etc. Because, you know, the military is suddenly interested, right? Exactly. So we benefit from that. Now all of a sudden, electric motors are more than adequate for making a tattoo. And so this is why, for example, the Numa is such a powerful machine, where the last Numa, when he had the clip-on electric motor that you could put on, you know, it was smooth, and, you know, I mean, people wanted to love it, but I just found I was having that same problem where it was a little bit here, you know, the saturation wasn't there.
Yeah. It's so interesting to watch all these changes. I remember I used to walk around conventions, and, you know, you'd hear that buzz, and I'd say, you know, 5 years from now, we're only going to hear a little bit, about 50% buzz. I didn't realize how quickly, I mean, hardly anybody uses coils anymore. My buddy got tattooed by Robert Hernandez the other day, and he was using coils, and it was pretty cool to see it happen. You know what I mean? And still plugging the same stuff, doing beautiful work. But once I got my hands on some good rotaries, it was, even as a machine builder, it was tough to go back for sure.
Guy, I was curious, you know, when you were sharing all the things that you're up to, and even how it sounds like you do have a nice balance in your life. I don't know that that's the right word, but from getting to be an epic tattooer, people flying in from all over, getting to paint every morning, getting the opportunity to walk out in nature and see and try and find and capture the light, and then getting to still teach in like your Monday night forums and all that. Out of all these things you're up to, does one happen to light you up more than the others?
Oh man, the thing that I am most focused on right now, that's sort of hidden behind the scenes right now, is my daughter and I are making a book, a children's book.
Come on.
And we've been working on it for about 5 years. And she's 10 now, so we've really been working on it for half her life.
Yeah.
But it's taken on a life of its own, and the illustrations have now got many hundreds of hours of time into them, and both of us are working on the illustrations. And it's interesting because it's just a kid's book. It's a story of 2 lizards battling a snake and getting all the other garden creatures involved. But at the same time, it's this interesting moment in my life where, you know, not to get too heavy here, you know, but as she's turning 10, and Michelle and I are feeling ourselves getting older, and we're watching the world change. You know how they say you don't know in the good old days when you're in the middle of them until you're looking back at it, right?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of like the turning of a page on this golden bubble in our lives, and so that's a lot of that is embodied in this book. So without even trying, I've ended up getting very emotionally invested into this silly little story about lizards battling a snake. But yeah, we're hoping to be kickstarting that over the winter, because I want her to have the crowdfunding experience and everything else. We'll see how that goes. So that's an unexpected side thing. I'm also trying to get better at ZBrush and this other 3D program called Keyshot, which is a rendering suite where you can take an object that you put together in ZBrush and render it to look like it's twilight in the winter on a foggy day. With you can bring in all these very nuanced kind of elements. So yeah, I really need to be up to speed with my 3D modeling, because I was once upon a time with this other app, and I was doing crazy stuff with it, using it in a lot of my paintings and a lot of my tattoos, and now I'm kind of starting over again with that. But fortunately, I know a few really good people, and Inglorious Hoko, who's just a total, just absolute badass artistically, has been very keen on sharing and really enthusiastic to see other people using ZBrush. You've got Tofi over in Poland. He's also shared a bit, but the things that he told me a couple of years ago, I wasn't ready for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm finally getting to a point where I can kind of go back to the emails where he sent me all these examples, be like, okay, I think I got that. So yeah, those are
the language.
Those are the things I'm really focused on right now. But people ask me what's going on, what's important. Not to sound cliche, but I'm excited about my career and everything, but it's family.
Come on,
my personal life and my family that's the thing that matters.
Yes.
And speaking of, someone's letting their cat in here. See if we get a disrupt or not. But yeah, that more than anything else, and I intend for that to remain very central.
Yes.
For a while. I mean, she's 10, so we've got some really important key years happening here. Very artistic. She's homeschooled. She uses both digital and analog media very fluidly. I want her to feel comfortable going back and forth between digital and analog worlds, doing animation, stop motion, video editing, writing her own music. She's a pretty good piano player, takes lessons every week, and writes a lot of her own music. So, this is what I want to see happen, and so it's natural for me to be more involved in being a teacher in general right now, because that's what Michelle and I are at home every day right now.
Yes.
So that's bigger in my life than anything else.
Absolutely. What a gift. I tell people all the time, our children are such gifts and such teachers. And if I was to speak for myself, my children are some of the greatest teachers in my life. And if and when they're not teaching me, Guy, they are reminding us of what the fuck really matters. Yeah. And I don't know about you. I grew up saying I'd never get married, definitely wasn't ever having kids. Well, the universe, God, source had other plans, because I'm married with 3 and I love it. I did not know what I was saying no to. And I definitely didn't know who I was saying no to. And in that vein, was this something, parenthood, that you and Michelle talked about and actually planned, or did the universe just surprise gift you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's then we get into the questions of free will and all that stuff, and I don't know if I'm quite ready to go there.
Okay. Sure.
But what you're touching on there is the important thing is the gratitude and understanding that this is all a gift.
Yes.
I think that some of the most unhappy people in the world are the ones that are so caught up in their drive, their ambition. They need to be better than others. They need to be recognized more than others. They need those material reminders, the evidence of whatever kind of quest for supremacy they believe that they're on, and really ultimately that's all empty. And I can say that having gone sort of full circle with all of this, and yeah, of course you want to have a good career, you want to make great art, you want to have a beautiful experience when you're with your clients, you want them to want to come back to you, but the important things in life are things that you can't buy and sell, and things that people aren't going to give you likes for, or congratulate you for, or give you a trophy for. You might not even realize it's even happening. You're immersed in it. It's your life. It's the most beautiful thing.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. You know,
Very
you
well
mentioned
put.
so well put, and you mentioned rewriting your book over the years, and then you and your daughter's book, and it's been in the making for 5 years. Did you two go through some rewrites on it, or has it just been evolving over the past 5 years?
It's gone through a lot of rewrites,
Yeah.
yes. And now we're in the final kind of layout stage of it, where we're really looking at the text. We're looking at the way that the illustrations turned out and making sure it really flows. And we're also asking ourselves, okay, so it was just a fun story about lizards and a snake, but most children's books have some kind of a moral in there, you know, and something that the character learns or gains, or some kind of transformation, you know, and so we're trying to look at the whole thing and ask, what is that? And we're kind of bringing that together, and it's kind of neat, you know. Really
Sounds
never
like it.
expected to be involved in something like this, but I feel like it's as important of a book for me to be involved in as any of the books I've ever done.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes, that's awesome.
Which is saying a lot, you know. I spent a decade in encyclopedia, you know, and man, the amount of myself that went into that thing, even though it's mostly other people's work. That was a deep dive like nobody's business, you know. Very interesting to get that involved with the whole community of artists who are doing that kind of work. Find new ones as they kind of appear out of the woodwork. And as soon as I'd see any work at all from somebody whose name wasn't familiar, I'd have to go and like look at all their work and see, is this somebody that I want to try to pull into the project? Is there time? Is there space? You know, and then of course the book itself had to keep changing. You know, I literally threw away as many chapters as I kept.
Wow.
You know, these are finished or almost finished layouts. It's like, you know, no matter how I try, this just doesn't improve the book, so I'm going to get rid of it. And you know, the way movie editors will look at a scene and say it's filmed well, it spent $2 million doing it. It doesn't make the movie better. It doesn't make the story flow better. So we should do without it.
Yeah. Wow. I really look forward to checking that book out when it comes out.
Yeah.
I want to just take a second for sure. And you know, I know everybody kind of, it seems cliche, you know, oh, you've done so much for the industry, blah, blah, blah. But I really do want to, from the bottom of my heart, Guy, tell you a heartfelt thank you for what you've done for the tattoo community, what you continue to do for this tattoo industry, what you've personally done for me. You don't realize it maybe, but when you said yes to writing the foreword for my book, it was one of the best days of my life. You gave me permission. You gave me legs to stand on. You know, you gave me something. I was self-publishing it. I very much look up to you. I looked up to you at the time as well. I remember talking to my dad about like how I reached out to you, and I was like, you know, this guy might write the foreword for my book, and I knew the weight that carried for me at the time. So I don't know if I ever conveyed it to you properly. So I just wanted to take a moment again just to tell you thank you for being here with us and for all you do and continue to do. I can't wait to see what you do. I believe you've got easily another 20 years in you, ahead of you. I'm going to make it a personal goal of mine to get my health better so I can come visit your beautiful studio and paint with you some morning.
Right on. Thank you, Josh. You know, the thing I want to say there is, you know, from my position, you know, I just think of myself as a dad, and sometimes I look back at the, you know, I remember that, you know, being on stage, look at my trophy. Hey, ladies. You know, it's like another life. It's like another person almost. with everything that's gone on in my life in 30 years. And I'm definitely a much happier person without all the pursuit of ego, having less to prove, I mean, I have enough to prove every day at home, that's already enough. If I can manage to pull off a good day as a dad, the rest is just cream, right?
Yes.
But then I hear people telling me that they got into tattooing because of me, or kinds of things that you were just saying, and sometimes it's hard to believe. Because sure. I had some figures like that too, and definitely there were some people that, like I mentioned earlier, Jack Ruder being one of the big ones. He and Carrie Barba, she tattooed me a couple times. Early on, these people gave me a kind of validation that I guess I needed at the time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I'll validate you. Shut up, kid. No, it was, they helped me find my self-confidence based on skills and things that I knew that I had. But it's nice when you've got other community members that remind you of those things and help you to focus on your own good qualities.
Yes.
Because especially people just starting their careers, especially with tattooing, huge as it is, huge and competitive and over flooded with just talent and a lot of noise,
noise.
I can't even imagine how intimidating it would be, It was so easy when I got into tattooing. It's like, all right, I'm going to start tattooing now, and nobody else in the entire Chicago area with a tattoo machine knows how to draw. This will be hard. It was, there'll never be a moment like that again. And I try to think about other people who might have just as much ability, raw, talent or whatever you might want to call it, as I might have had back then. Coming into tattooing now, they're going to have a completely different struggle, a completely different journey.
I couldn't imagine starting now. It'd be crazy.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to come in with anything less than a stellar skill set of drawing. And even then, that's it's a different feel, a different time and place. And so to those of you out there who are in the early part of your journey, don't get discouraged.
Yeah.
You don't have to compare yourself to others. That's the easiest way to shut yourself down. Just pay attention to your own progress. I do recommend coming to the free Reinventing the Tattoo drawing groups. You can get the Reinventing app for free at the App Store. And that has a button showing you the schedule of the various different drawing groups. If you decide to become a paid subscriber, come join the Monday night groups that I lead. But even if you're just, at that apprentice level and you're just wanting to find some more artists that you can kind of, network with and get some feedback from. Nobody in these other drawing groups is like all high and mighty and going to make you feel bad for being at the entry level. This is, in particular, the Thursday group is the fundamental group. It's being led by somebody who's just apprenticeship. And so these are highly recommended. You are at that stage where you're trying to find your place and you're feeling crowded out with all the noise. That would be something I would recommend. I also wanted to mention reinventing247.com. That is, if you go there, there's a good example of the free live programming that we have going on. There's stuff always streaming there. We also have the Reinventing the Tattoo YouTube channel, where we have a number of live events that go on there as well. Some of them we share out Zoom links and people can hop on and join us. Some of them are just podcasts, interview shows, things like that.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Everybody be sure to check that out.
Yes, absolutely. And thank God for the people in our lives that believed in us more than we did at the time, Right. So thankful for the Carrie Barbers and the people in your life that believed in you and gave you a shot. One difference when you was like suggesting for everyone and all our listeners to get on the Reinventing, even if they start with the free, is, when we were coming up, we had to have the courage to physically walk up to like a Jack Rudy in your case and ask for help, risking, being shut down, where the people today, it don't take as much courage to click a button, even though
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Imagine this, like, I'm going to click this button and suddenly I'm going to be naked in front of a bunch of people.
Right.
Might be way better. Some of them might have attitude. Some of them, they might all know each other, and I don't know any of them.
Outsider,
It's intimidating. So I just want everyone to know, if you're considering joining one of these groups, it's not a cool guys club. You are welcome. These groups were made for you.
Awesome.
So good. So good.
So this far in life, Guy, looking back, what do you think one of your biggest challenging moments was in your career?
Oh, well, not to just circle back to parenthood,
Oh yeah.
In terms of real challenges, the career challenges, that there were a few big ones. Gilmani almost kicked my ass on a convention floor once. Things like that come up throughout my life. But okay, another one. Don McDonald and I talk about this a lot, because he comes out here twice a year to collaborate, and he's been doing it for decades, right? He's been very steady around here. And we watch people kind of come and go, and it's like, that person was doing great. What happened? And maintaining is hard for some people.
Yeah.
Building up a creative career, you're self-propelled, you sink or swim on your own, and lots of things can go wrong. You can have family problems. You could, slowly, without trying, become a raging alcoholic. You could develop self-confidence problems that give you artist block. You could end up having everybody in your shop leave and open up a competing shop across the street, and all of a sudden you have to figure everything out all over again. All kinds of these things happen, and I wish that I could say that there's an answer beyond just always be building those skills. Make sure that your central thing, your style, or whatever you want to call it, the brand of tattooing that you do, that none of these other things ever are more important than that. The things that are happening on the side, the branding, the social media events, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that the core of it is always the tattooing, and that you're doing great tattoos, and that you're doing them so they'd be good enough for your own skin. And I like to believe that between that and treating people well, the rest of it kind of falls into place.
Well said.
Yes.
Perfect.
Kind of in line with Hip's question that he just asked you, I was going to ask you if you could maybe pinpoint a fear that you had throughout your life and or career that you feel like you finally had an area breakthrough in, or when you experienced some transformation, that which used to be a complete fear.
I think that I probably had fewer fears when I was younger. I don't know. I think they never really go away. There's this lurking specter, and I think that this is something that happens for most creative people. There's this thing that's looking over your shoulder, and it's there, and it's a boogie monster. It's your own self-criticism and self-doubt, and comparing yourself to others, and maybe the voices of critics that you dealt with earlier in your life, or whatever, and that it shuts a lot of people down. Some people don't even create because they've got that voice. So I think that it's important to not nurture that thing, and that's easier said than done. A lot of the time that thing is there because people have actually said these things to you and really meant it, and and it echoes forever. Right? So how do you combat that? How do you reverse the effects. And I wish that I had an answer to that other than just doing work every day and being sincere about trying to improve yourself. And,
Yes.
you know, in Reinventing the Tattoo, we try to set specific goals. You know, okay, for the next 3 months, let's work on clarifying our shading. You know, and so I'll do critiques with the members, and you know, we'll look at several photos of tattoos, and we'll review what our goal was that we talked about the previous time, and we'll either reiterate that goal and come up with ideas to help you know, try to get closer to it, or if it seems like that goal has been met, to come up with new goals. So, you know, self-improvement is something you have to be mindful about. You have to be deliberate and intentional about it. You can't just say, I want to be better, or I suck. You know, you have to say, okay, I really wish my work was more readable. Why is it not more readable? And then you might need to get some critiques from people that can give you an objective and say, well, you know, you got the same amount of shading and everything, you know, bro. Like, if you made it darker in these shapes and much lighter in these shapes, you have some contrast. Interesting. Okay. And then you're not just going to break those habits overnight in the next piece, right?
Yeah.
But because you've had that advice, you can, as a goal, make a point of, with every project, trying to push yourself to break that habit or create that new habit. Where before you know it, 3 months has passed and you've made visible progress. So this is one of the things we try to do in Reinventing, is just get away from the simple, I wish I was better, and to get very intentional about it and figure out, okay, you want to be better? Let's figure out where the improvement needs to happen, and let's break it down into a step 1, step 2 kind of thing, so that it's doable.
Love that.
We've got a loose cat in here, and I'm just waiting for him to knock something over. We're going to get going pretty soon. I've probably got about 5 more minutes. Is there anything else we were hoping to cover?
I think I'm good. I was about to say, I think I need to take my medication anyway. So for me, I'm good. You guys got any questions or anything?
What's one question we didn't ask you, Guy, that we should have?
Man, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
The thing that I would like to recommend is to just install the app and just browse it, because we've got so much stuff there. We've been building this up over the last couple of years, and we've got a team of people who have been great about cataloging and archiving all this stuff. So we've got an incredible amount of interviews, not just artist interviews, but we've interviewed people like archaeologists, chemists, and, you know, philosophers, and, you know, you name it. We've really gone deep into the rabbit hole. There's also some good documentaries and things like that in the library. The exercises, a lot of the exercises are available to the public.
Yes.
Recording some of the ones that we did that were for the public. You can check those out and maybe work along with one of them and ask yourself, what I want to do this on a weekly basis.
Yes.
So that's one thing I recommend checking out.
And shout out to your customer service on that, because I was having a couple issues and they were more readily available than I was to respond, and somehow they fixed the issue on their end or guided me through it on my end, and was, you know.
Yeah, it's nice to have a dedicated staff. Sandy, who's like at the very hub of a lot of our productions. She got tattooed by me on that TV show LA Inc. like 20 years ago, but she's been a Reinventing student for, you know, decades. And so, yeah, it's been great to have somebody that's been with the program for so long, who's now, you know, a person that actually does the outreach to a lot of the people that we're involved with.
So powerful.
Guy, what's your cat's name?
This one here is Meep. This is my daughter's cat. We have cats plural. I'm not going to get the exact number here because I don't want people to think I'm weird. We live one of those places where they go up. Yeah, exactly. Come here. Everyone wants to see you.
Yeah.
This is Mr. Me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time out and serving us from your table. You know,
been a great interview. I look forward to seeing the final edit. thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
And Josh, hope that you continue to get stronger and
I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'm going to make it a point to come out and visit you. So
Yeah.
nice. Well, let's make that happen.
awesome.
What an honor.
All right, man. Have a great
Cheers,
night.
everyone.
Man, what an amazing episode. Are you still listening? Are you still watching? Folks, it's shout out time like we promised you every week. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for writing us, sharing your hearts. It encourages us. We want to acknowledge you. Hip, who would you like to acknowledge today?
Man, so I want to give a shout out to Josh Hawley. Effing Josh on IG. He reached out to me the other day basically saying that our St. Mark episode was super dope and that we're keeping it real and he's grateful for us and he just fucking loves what we're doing and told us to keep doing it. So
Man.
shout out, Josh, man.
Thank
we
you,
appreciate
Josh.
you.
When you say his Instagram handle's Effin, is that EFF? How you spell that?
Yeah, that was crazy. You said that. Yes, it is EFFIN Josh. Effing Josh. Pretty dope
Effin' Josh.
tattooer.
Much love to you, brother, and respect. I want to shout out, my goodness, the chief creative officer of the magazine Skin and Ink magazine,
Hell yeah.
Mr. motherfucking Scott Rasago.
Shout out,
Reached
Scott.
out to us to bless us, encourage us. He's been listening to the podcast too, and even offered for us to do, be in the next issue of Skin and Ink magazine. Scott, thank you. So honored. We appreciate all of you for listening, watching, tuning in, and writing us every week. We're gonna do this every week. We're
Every
gonna
week.
acknowledge you and shout you out. Thanks for all the love, y'all. We're giving